Sometimes, after a hectic day at work or a long hour of grocery shopping, you just want to come home to freshly cooked food. But unfortunately, that option is not always available. The food industry came up with a brilliant solution to this problem in the mid 1900s by inventing TV dinners. The business recorded what seemed like instant success. However, whose idea was it, and how did it start? Welcome to the America's Trip Down Memory Lane channel. In today's video, we'll be talking about TV dinners, which were lifesavers in 20th century America. TV dinners are basically frozen, portion meals that can be reheated and ready to eat within minutes. Within the first few decades of its introduction to the market, everybody was buying these TV dinners, which earned the food industry hundreds of millions of dollars. As popular as these quick fixes were, their origin wasn't really clear. However, there were a couple of brands that stood out. For example, Swanson. Swanson almost completely dominated this industry in the mid-1900s, but frozen meals had been in existence since the 1920s. A naturalist and entrepreneur named Clarence Birdseye introduced the concept of freezing foods to the American food industry in the early 1920s. For the past century or more, freezing as a method of storage wasn't popular among Americans because they noticed that frozen foods lost their flavor and texture when they were recooked. However, Birdseye's approach brought about some sort of revelation. Birdseye learned his superb freezing technique while he was living with the Inuit people of Canada. When he came to America, Birdseye tried out this freezing technique using fish, and everyone was amazed by how it was able to maintain its initial freshness, texture, and flavor after being frozen. Birdseye's secret weapon was flash freezing the food items rather than slow freezing like the Americans had been doing all these years. In the 1930s, Birdseye, who sought to expand his business, decided to apply this freezing technology to vegetables as well. However, America wasn't ready for this at the time. Only a few people had access to refrigerators. Refrigerated supermarkets were rare, and it was hard to transport frozen foods. Ultimately, Birdseye's vision could not be fulfilled. But it is very accurate to say that the man's experiments built the foundation for frozen foods in the country. It wasn't until World War II that the use of frozen meals started gaining popularity. Using Birdseye's flash freezing technology, Maxon Food Systems Inc. started making portion meals, which were transported to soldiers and civilian air carriers actively involved in the war. This happened in the mid-1940s, and the meals were quite convenient. Each serving consisted of portions of meat, potatoes, and vegetables, and the soldiers were able to reheat the food using ovens also provided by Maxon Food Systems. The meals were popularly called strato plates, or sky plates, and just when they were about to be introduced to the public after the war, the company's founder W.L. Maxon died suddenly, and this put a stop to the plan. This was quite unfortunate, but in a couple of years another businessman thought about this idea, and the public was able to enjoy these convenient meals. In 1947, an entrepreneur called Jack Fisher started selling portion meals. However, his business was restricted to bars and taverns in certain areas of America. These meals were called Friggy dinners and placed in aluminum trays. For some reason, this genius product was still kept away from American homes, and it wasn't until 1949 that these frozen meals were actually introduced to the target market. In 1949, two brothers, Albert and Mayer Bernstein, took the big leap and launched frozen meals to a larger consumer market than ever before. This brand was named Frozen Dinners Inc., and originally they were operating in only Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Within just 1 year of their launch, frozen dinners sold out almost 500,000 packs, and the business quickly expanded throughout the eastern parts of the U.S. What started out as one small shop in the Pittsburgh area became a much bigger brand known as Quaker State Food Corporation, and by the end of the decade, they had sold over 2 million frozen meals. They had no notable competition in this business until 1953, when Swanson entered the game and completely changed it. Swanson was almost single-handedly responsible for spreading the gospel of frozen meals across the country. At the time, C.A. Swanson & Sons was a popularly known seller of frozen poultry and chicken pot pies, and the company had no involvement in frozen meals until an unsuccessful Thanksgiving sales in 1952. In early 1953, the company had more than 520,000 pounds of leftover poultry, and instead of leaving them to get bad, they started thinking about productive ways to use this insane amount of leftovers. To keep the long-term refrigerated poultry from going bad, the higher-ups decided to transport them using 10 refrigerated railway cars. The refrigeration feature of these cars could only work when the vehicles were in motion, so the Swanson railway cars set out from their headquarters in Nebraska. They didn't exactly have a clear destination in mind, and neither did they have a plan. However, as they went round the East Coast, the company's executives continued to think up solutions. The idea of making frozen meals out of leftover foods was introduced on what seemed like a country tour. In under a year, Swanson was making millions from this genius idea. However, that's the well-known part. The part of the story that is still unclear is the question, who came up with the idea? One version of the story says that a salesman at Swanson, Gary Thomas, came up with the idea. Others say the Swanson brothers, Gilbert and Clark, who were sons of the company's founder, came up with the genius plan. There are other versions of the story, but these are the two most popular ones. Gary Thomas claimed he was inspired by aluminum trays for frozen food that he saw while visiting a distributor's warehouse in Pittsburgh. After this encounter, he drafted a serving model, which was a foil tray with 3 compartments, which could serve as a serving and cooking tray. Thomas claimed to have presented the idea to his bosses, the Swanson brothers, who loved the idea and forged ahead with it. As a result of his contribution to Swanson's frozen meals business, Thomas, who was originally earning $200 per month, was given an incentive of $1,000 and a raise. However, the other versions of the story of how the TV dinner idea came to life dispute Thomas's involvement in the process. The second version of the story states that the Swanson brothers were the ones that came up with the idea of running a frozen meal business. Gilbert Swanson was said to have gotten the inspiration for a 3-compartment tray for an airline serving tray. Apparently, it was also Gilbert's idea to call the pack TV dinner, an idea he supposedly got from watching people watch TV with their food in their laps. While it may be uncertain whose idea it was to start the business did start and it was a bomb. The trays were created and filled with the leftover turkey with gravy over cornbread dressing, peas in a different compartment, and frozen sweet potatoes in another. The journey in the railway cars became a nationwide marketing campaign. The company's publicists did a very good job, making adverts that housewives could relate to and packaging the meals to look like miniature television sets. Customers weren't just attracted, but they were also glued to the product. A pack of frozen food cost barely $1. And as soon as the Swanson TV dinner was launched in 1953, it was an immediate success. The units sold per year increased exponentially. In the first year, 10 million packs were sold, and 25 million the following year. From then on, this value kept going up, overshadowing other brands that had been to the business before the emergence of Swanson. Swanson TV dinner lived up to its name as people would sit in front of the TV to watch their favorite TV shows after a long day at work. Thanks to Swanson, the traditional way of eating at a dining table was almost completely abandoned, and people preferred to eat in front of the television. It suddenly became everybody's favorite thing to watch, I Love Lucy or Gunsmoke, while eating a dinner of Salisbury steak or fried chicken, which took barely 10 minutes to prepare. Soon other companies like Stouffer's and Banquet hopped on the moving train, and this part of the American culinary industry was generating billions and billions of dollars every year. Frozen meals are still very much available today, and while Swanson is no longer a top player, it's undeniable that for the decades that the company dominated the frozen meals industry, its contribution to the industry was invaluable. Swanson will always be remembered as the brand which set the trail for frozen meals in America. Thank you for watching. Hit us up in the comments section and give us a thumbs up if you liked the video, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos.